my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Michael McGovern. Michael has been town manager of Cape Elizabeth since 1985 and a member of the Rotary Club there in Portland. Mike has been a Rotarian since 1986 and has served as Vice President, RI Board Executive Committee, Permanent Fund National Advisor, RI Membership Zone Coordinator, Rotary International Training Leader, and District Governor. A past Council on Legislation representative. He is also a past chair of Rotarians for Fighting AIDS. He is a major donor and a member of the Rotary Foundation's Bequest Society and a recipient of the Citation for Meritorious Service. He is currently serving Rotary as the Rotary Foundation Trustee and is chairing the Rotary International PolioPlus Committee. Let's extend a warm, maybe a rousing reception for Rotarian Michael McGovern.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tennessee, what a great place to be. Yeah, I always like it when they introduce me after the likes of someone like HK, someone like Thaddeus this morning. I heard Karen and Michael and others who have spoken. I didn't hear them all yesterday. I wasn't here, but it's always tough to follow such a stellar group. You know, once in a while I travel to these pets, and has anyone ever been to the Atlanta airport? No one's been to the Atlanta airport. Come on, put the hands up. You know, I figured, you know, we're here in Tennessee. Everyone has had to go through that beautiful airport at different times. Well, a couple of months ago, I was going just off from where this pet is. I was going to Gulfport, Mississippi one morning. And I got up and went to the airport in Portland, Maine. I think it was a 5:30 a.m. flight. And I arrived in Atlanta and got off the plane, and I had like a 3-hour layover before the connecting flight over to Gulfport. And I decided that I wanted a spinach and cheese omelet. You know, I know that's odd. You know, why is he talking about wanting a spinach and cheese omelet? Well, anyway, I was in the airport, and I was in my concourse, and I looked around. There wasn't much there, so I decided I'd take the train and go to the next concourse. And there was a Carrabba's there. Has anyone ever been to a Carrabba's restaurant? Good. Does anyone here work for Carrabba's? Okay, it's safe to say something. Anyone work for Cisco? Okay, that's fine. I'm safe. Anyway, so I went in, and there were no customers. Apparently, you know, my flight was, you know, one of those times when everyone wasn't changing. And I went in, I was the only one there. They had 2 items on the menu. Now, that's an Italian restaurant. I think one was a burrito, little odd, and the other was a frittata. And I didn't want a frittata. I wanted a spinach and cheese omelet. So I said, well, you know, can't you make a spinach and cheese omelet for me? And they kind of looked at me, and, you know, these chain restaurants, oh, we only have 2 things on the cash register we can punch in. I said, well, you know, just, you know, what you think it's worth? Charge me the more expensive one, add a couple of things, you know, we'll make it work. And she said, well, you know, I don't think we can do that. And I said, well, you know, the frittata, you've got eggs. You know, you must serve a spinach salad or something for lunch or sometime during the day. And, you know, clearly you have to have cheese. And she says to me, the frittatas are all pre-made. You know, not what I was expecting. But anyway, she said, oh, sometimes the staff comes in and we want eggs in the morning, and, you know, they have eggs. So she came back and she said, oh, we'll bring it to you. But it got me thinking of Rotary, some house, the spinach and cheese omelets, of going in to a restaurant and them handing you a menu. And, you know, years and years ago, if we were handed a menu, we ordered from the menu, and that was it. The menus were pretty limited. You didn't feel as though you had a lot of say in the menu, but the world's a little bit different now. Before I go to most restaurants these days, not in airports, I look online. And I'll actually look at the menu, make sure this is a place I want to go. The other night, I was in New Jersey, we went to an Italian restaurant. I knew what I ordered, what I wanted to have before I got there. And you know, you look at these menus, and you go online, and you look at the Yelp reviews, you look at the TripAdvisor reviews, and you decide, do you want to eat at this restaurant? And I think a little bit, if you look at the Rotary analogy in this, is just think if in our own clubs, first of all, people went and looked at our website, and they looked at what's on our menu. What is it about? What are the selections? Have the menus been updated over the years? Are the things that are listed there important to people? Do they care about them? So think if you, on July 1, or you could do it beforehand if your president agrees, you handed them the menu of all of the opportunities of what they have to do in your club. What would be their reaction? Is it time to switch out the menu? If you think of a lot of restaurants, what happens to restaurants that don't update their menus? They usually go out of business. I look at Rotary sometimes, and I look at, and other speakers have touched on this, how willing are we to change? How willing are we to try something new in the menu? You look now, and when I went to restaurants years and years ago, they didn't have arugula and goat cheese. And, today, you don't choose a restaurant because they have arugula and goat cheese, but people expect to see different things on the menu. I look at it during my lifetime. We went through the beginnings of the Space Age. We had this period called the Age of Aquarius. Does anyone remember that? There was some song, we need Thaddeus up here with the guitar. I don't remember all the words, but anyway, then we had the Disco Age, and there were several others. And with apologies to District 6710, I don't know if you can see that banner over there. Sometimes I think Rotary's in the felt age. If you look at updating, there was in the recent presidential primaries up in my area, Jeb Bush, Governor Bush, spoke to the Rotary Club of Nash Shore West. And the Rotary banner was in back of him. And it was one of those felt banners. And just think of, the opportunity that was missed to show a modern view of Rotary, to maybe have had a pop-up banner and to see what it might look like. And it's sometimes, I think it is so easy to update what we're doing. It is so easy to update the menu. It is so easy to update the look. Look at that beautiful Atlanta banner. It's the modern way of doing things. Look at all those banners. And again, I don't mean to pick on 6710. My club has that same banner. 80% of the Rotary clubs in the United States have that same banner. When my club was founded in 1961, 2 weeks before John F. Kennedy became the President of the United States, that was the banner we got. That is the banner we have. They decided they'd meet on Wednesday nights at 6:15. Guess when we meet? Wednesday nights at 6:15. They decided we would sell Christmas trees as our number one fundraiser. 55 years later, guess what our number one fundraiser is? But everything else in the world is changing. You have people like me who go into a restaurant, they aren't satisfied with what's on the menu. They want to see it improvised a little bit. They want to see it different. And if the restaurant isn't responsive, what happens? They go to another restaurant. They go to another place. That's a lot of what's happening in Rotary today. We have people come in, we're handing them the same menu we handed them in 1975. We're posing before the same felt banner we had in 1955. It's a wonder that, we sometimes wonder why sometimes the reaction isn't as good as we'd like it to be to Rotary. So I look at this, I get a question for you. How many of you joined Rotary when you were 40 years of old or under? How many of you joined Rotary? Yeah, look around at all those hands. That's good. You know, over a third, and I've asked this at 3 pets in the last 2 weeks. In every single pet, 1/3 of the hands have gone up that the Rotarians in the room joined Rotary at the age of 40 or under. Karen and I got a statistic the other day from Rotary headquarters in Evanston. 3.5% of the Rotarians in the world are under the age of 40. So I asked myself, is our menu working for that age group? You know, I'm not suggesting that people under 40 shouldn't belong to our Rotary clubs. I welcome that we have some tremendous members of my club who are under 40, and most of us were once under 40 when we joined the club. But at the same time, I also ask myself, if I look at those numbers, and I'm true to thinking about them and analyzing them, and only 3.5% of our population is under the age of 40, you know, maybe we need to open a new restaurant. I don't mean to, you know, necessarily a new meeting place. I mean, maybe we need some new clubs that have the passion for Rotary that we do, that develop a brand new menu, that develop new opportunities, that develop what younger generations want to have, just as we did when 1/3 of us joined Rotary under the age of 40. You know, there's a gentleman named John Maxwell, and he said, the great leaders of the world are never those who fought change. You know, the easiest thing for all of you to do as a Rotary Club president is to defend the status quo. You know, we do wonderful work. We do tremendous work. We wouldn't be here at the Sheridan Music, whatever the name of it is, this hotel, if we didn't believe in Rotary. We wouldn't have gone to the expense of having our clubs, our own expensive time away from our families on what's a so beautiful weekend. We wouldn't have done that. We believe in Rotary. You know, if you believe in Rotary as much as I believe in Rotary, I want it to continue to the next generations. I think the values that we have, the principles that we stand for, the service that we provide communities, every generation wants to do that, particularly the younger generation. More than ever, I've seen them attuned to wanting to help people to do meaningful things in their community, but they don't want to do it in the way that we did it. You know, they don't want to make the commitments. And going back to my menu analogy, you know, we hand new Rotarians the menu. Oftentimes, we expect them to order every single thing on the menu. Have you ever go into a restaurant and order every single thing on the menu? You would look like me. You would look like some others, you know. The point is that, you know, we've got to encourage people to find their niche, to be selective, to find out what interests them. Because, you know what, we're not all going to love Youth Exchange, believe it or not. We're not all going to love Interact. We're not all going to love water projects, and even some aren't going to love polio. We just need to recognize that, and we need to be attuned to what others want. So I just say that, you know, I know it's difficult to hear, and I don't mean to criticize District 6710. I criticize my own club the same way. But, you know, think about it, and think of when you become president of your club, to do a new menu, to put new selections on them, to find out what they really want. You have visioning in some of your districts. You have strategic planning in some of your districts. There's lots of ways of doing it that are very complicated, that are very good, but there's also simple ways of doing it. Hand them a blank sheet. Ask them what they'd like that club to be doing. And, you know, no one should get confused. We're not talking about what they serve at your meals or your events. We're talking about the service menu, the activities, the fundraising projects, the actual projects that you do to serve humanity, as John Germ encourages us to. But you know what? I wouldn't be a Rotary leader unless I had one particular thing that I want to say that I want to have on all your menus. You know, as was mentioned in the introduction, I happen to be chair of the International PolioPlus Committee of Rotary International. I replaced a gentleman from Chattanooga, Tennessee, Saudi Daisy, Tennessee, a guy by the name of John Germ, who we'll be hearing from tonight. John was the longtime chairman of the polio committee, 3 months. He was actually the vice chairman for a long time, was the great fundraiser. He, Jim Lacey, Glenn Estes, Mark Maloney, Karen, there's so many leaders. Bill Sargent, of course, from Oak Ridge, Tennessee, the longtime chair of the Polio International Committee. This is the place that really kept it going, that had the persistence, that provided the leadership over the years. I've been in the position now 2 years, and I've found that a lot of it we don't explain very well. We rely on a lot of stories that are out there. They're sort of urban myths about what we're actually doing to eradicate polio. We tend to focus on a few numbers. So I want to give you a brief update on how we're really doing. The top line things is I think everyone has heard one time or another. The cases are going way down. We've had 7 cases so far in 2016. For the first time ever last year, there was not a single case on the African continent. There wasn't a single case in India. There were just 74 cases worldwide. And this year, there were 7 compared to 20 at this time. So the cases are disappearing. But we still have issues in Africa. If you're like me, in the old days, we used to burn leaves in our yard. And then a couple hours later, you'd go back out again and the leaves would be burning a little bit. We got to make sure that doesn't happen in Africa. We're still funding immunizations in Cameroon and Mali and Nigeria, in Chad and Sudan and in so many places, because we want to make sure that those viruses that are still out there a little bit don't catch on and we don't actually see polio cases. A couple months ago, I had the opportunity to go to Pakistan. Pakistan's one of the 2 countries where there's still polio cases, along with Afghanistan. I'll admit I won't go to Afghanistan. Obvious reasons. It's not a safe place to go. But I went to Pakistan, and I wanted to see really the last place on earth where most of the cases are, to see if our investment is paying off, to see if the government is working well. And I think, you can look at statistics, you can look at, where the numbers are going, but to me it's really meeting the people that are doing it. Meeting the people. Aziz Memon, who was our Rotary volunteer chair there, he took me around to different places. And one place I'm not going to mention the town's name because of security reasons, but they took me down to this place up near Peshawar, which is not the best place in the world. It's a Taliban stronghold. And we went to a community almost right next to that. They took me down this alleyway, and they took me into this small health center with polio signage on the outside. And there were 9 women there, maybe 10, in their burqas. And these were lady health workers. These are lady health workers who we're paying little stipends to, who go up and down those same alleyways, making sure that the kids get polio drops. And while I'm in there, they're doing a presentation to us, telling us the work that they're doing there, how they're trying to get at the missed children. I look around outside the perimeter, and there's 9 men with AK-47s protecting me because I'm there. 9 men with AK-47s. That tells, one, the atmosphere that we're working in, but also I look at the courage of those women in their burqas going door to door. They don't have 9 AK-47s protecting them. Just the day before yesterday, in a community south of Karachi, a woman was shot in the arm while administering polio drops. When I was in Islamabad that same trip, Aziz said, there's a gentleman who wants to meet you. We were down in the lobby one morning, and the man came limping across the floor in the lobby. He had 2 canes. And my presumption is I'm going to meet a polio survivor. His name was Latif. He was a polio survivor, but he didn't have polio. He had been shot in both feet for administering polio drops. His brother had been assassinated for administering polio drops. And I think, we never knew when Bill Sargent and others were involved in this so long ago, over the last 30 years. We knew the virus was going to be tough. We knew we were at war with this polio virus, but we didn't know that the polio virus was going to have allies like it sometimes have. And these allies we call them anti-government elements, AGEs. And, sadly, that's what we're up against. But what I saw in Pakistan is, despite that, the government could not be more committed. The government's putting its own resources in, and somewhat controversially, they are even arresting parents who won't have their kids immunized. There's been story after story. They arrested 60 men and women on a given day. They arrested 20 others. So, when you hear, is it a good investment to be doing it in Pakistan, I'm convinced it is a good investment. And you know what? If we as Rotarians can have the persistence to eradicate polio in every country of the world except Pakistan and Afghanistan, there's no reason to expect that we can't do it in Afghanistan and Pakistan. So you as club presidents, you're not asked to go up and down alleyways to possibly be shot at. You're not asked to potentially give up your life to make sure that this disease is eradicated. I think all of you probably think of the 16 million children since we began this who haven't had polio as a result of the work your clubs have done over the years. Just since the year 2000, as a result of Rotary's leadership of this effort, 15 billion doses of the polio vaccine have been given to children. As a result, these kids have not contracted polio. It's an amazing history, and it happens because Rotarians have stayed committed, because Rotarians have continued to donate the funds necessary, be it cans on tables at Rotary meetings where you throw in a little bit of change, something called the World's Greatest Meal where a club sponsors a meal. We have bridge walks, we have trail walks. It's $1 at a time. John Germ is suggesting next year, John Germ is as committed as anyone to ending polio. He's been our greatest fundraiser, our greatest advocate. He would like to see every club, as part of the presidential citation next year, donate $2,650 to the eradication of polio. And that doesn't need to be from the club treasury. It can be from an event. It can be from individual members giving some, the club. But you know what? I hope you do that. I hope you do that. Because it's very possible, it's possible but not too likely right now, that when John takes office on July 1 as the president of Rotary International, we may have seen our last polio case. My guess, though, is at this point, we're probably going to see our last polio case in the world when John Germ is the president of Rotary International. And I think of John and his relationship with Bill Sargent. I think here in Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, the leadership that you've provided, I hope that the districts in this room, the clubs that you represent, continue to provide that leadership to the end. You have a choice for adding something very significant to the menu: the eradication of polio. And I can't imagine when it's announced that we've gone a year without a case of polio in the world, that we've gone about 3 years without a case, and we have the certification of the end of polio. I can't imagine being a Rotarian and not having the feeling that at some point I put 25 cents into that can. I gave $1. My club provided leadership. There aren't many things we do in our life that are truly meaningful. There's only been one disease in the history of the world eradicated. We're about to see the second one, and that's the eradication of polio. So I thank you all for the leadership that you're going to provide to your clubs, for the flexibility you're going to have in your clubs to try to update them and to make sure that after we eradicate polio, they can take on the other challenges in your communities and around the world. We don't know what those projects are. All of you are going to write those menus. You're going to determine what comes after polio. So I thank you for doing that. I thank you for your service. And again, it's just tremendous to be here in Nashville and to see such energy and such excitement. Thank you for all you're going to do to serve humanity. Thank you very much. Thank you.